morning, happy Monday. So yesterday I posted this video and I basically was talking about, like, if you're a sinner, if you're somebody that has a past, what the world considers a past, that can be used in the present as a testimony. I said a few other things, but one of the things I said was, if you don't fit into religious societal norms. And the cool thing is, like, I post these because I want to interact with people. And someone on YouTube says, "What do you mean by that?" And I stood there, I was like, oh, wait, God, like, you gave me this checklist on the way home. What does that mean? Like, for you, what does that mean? And what was cool was that immediately he brought back to my memory that he had been talking to me about the story in Luke. I think it's Luke 18, 9 through 14. I'm terrible with biblical references. But he brought back to my memory that story. And it's a super simple parable with such a powerful meaning. And basically, a Pharisee who was a religious teacher in biblical times and a tax collector who was one of the most hated people in the Bible at that time, they both go up to the temple to pray. And the tax collector, who is this big, arrogant, I hate to say, but haughty religious person, was like, "God, I'm so glad I'm nothing like this tax collector." Like, I give, I pray, I do all these things. I'm so righteous in your sight. And the poor tax collector was not poor. Actually, I take that back. He's not poor. But he bowed his head and says he beat his chest because he knew he was ashamed of what he'd done, that he was, essentially stealing from people, because they used to rob those people blind. They're like, "Well, let me get your taxes and then some." But anyway, so he's like, "God, I'm going to humble myself. I'm a sinner and I'm sorry." And basically, Jesus, he was, telling his disciples, he's like, that tax collector, because of his humility, he's not what you'd think would be, what God would praise. You would think that God would be like, "Yeah, huzzah, hurrah," to the religious leader, not the tax collector, the Pharisee. But it was the tax collector that basically, I don't want to say won over God, because it makes it sound like you can win over God, but God saw his heart of humility, and God was so happy with that. The Pharisee, on the other hand, he was like, ooh. He was like, "Sir, we need to work on your arrogance." He doesn't say that, but God loves a humble, pure heart. And so that's what I got to tell the person on YouTube. It's like, the people that you least expect, God will use, as long as their heart is pure, if it's humble, because the message of that story is, those who exalt themselves, God gonna make sure you get humbled. But those who humbly come before him will definitely be exalted, that God will raise you up. God will use you. And God doesn't use the people that we expect. And that's what I told the person. I said, I grew up in church. I thought you had to look a certain way. You had to, be married, have the white picket fence, be almost sinless, look like. How wrong I was, and I am so happy to admit that I was wrong. I am so happy to admit that I serve a God that doesn't take the people that have it together, that I serve a God that takes the most random people that you'd least expect to use for his kingdom and use for his glory. Because that's so cool. And so I shared with that person, I was like, nobody expected God to, approve of the tax collector, to forgive him, to be able to use his story to speak to generations after the Bible was written. And I mean, they just gave me a thumbs up on YouTube. But, it's so cool that you don't have to have it together to come to God. You actually, He didn't expect that. I mean, again, he loves you too much to leave you where you are once you come to him. But you don't have to have it together. Just go to him. Go to him with a pure heart. That's what he's looking at anyway, is your heart. Just humble yourself and don't worry about what the church or religion says about you. Religion wants you to look and act a certain way. They're going to change you from the outside to get to your insides. And God says, no, I'm working from the inside out. So that was pretty cool. You can go read that video and let's be friends.